Fitness coming at you guys. What my cutting regimen looks like. So I got a question asking what I do to shred up, to lose weight. And so this is going to be a brief video just talking about some of the basics. As I mentioned before, being in a calorie deficit is going to be unnecessary. It's the number one thing. If you are consuming more calories than you're burning, you're never going to lose weight. That includes body fat, despite what some people think. Now, if you're new to weightlifting, I think it is possible to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, because your body is in such a shock from doing things that it's not used to that they kind of call it newbie gains, you know? So if you're past that, say, first year, you kind of have to pick and choose what you want to do. The idea for me personally, since I'm not that big of a guy, when I lose weight, I'm trying to hold on to as much muscle as I possibly can. I understand I'm going to lose some muscle, I'm going to lose some strength in the gym. You know, that comes with the territory, especially if you're natural. So being in a calorie deficit, still lifting heavy, okay? I lift the same as when I'm bulking or cutting. When I'm bulking, the only difference is I'm trying to make more gains. I'm trying to actually have more progressive overload, heavier and heavier and heavier, more reps, more reps, more reps. And when I'm cutting weight, I understand that I'm probably not going to be able to make those same type of progressive overload gains, but that doesn't mean that I stop lifting heavy. I still try to put the same tension under my body as I do normally and let the calorie deficit do the work. And you have to be careful. You know, you don't want to do like 1 rep maxes, in my opinion. You know, I could make a whole other video on that, but I think you need to be careful when you're lifting heavy, especially when you're in a calorie deficit, because you don't have the fat to lubricate your joints as much. You don't have just the overall calories in your system, so you're going to be weaker, and you know, you got to be in tune with your body to understand that. Another thing, my cardio goes up. You know, when I'm trying to put on weight, put on mass, I do minimal cardio. Cardio is more for health reasons when I'm bulking. But when I'm cutting, it's a powerful tool. And I try not to do too much cardio, because if I'm already in a calorie deficit and I'm lifting weights, you know, I'm trying to, like I said, hold on to as much muscle as I possibly can. So if you do too much cardio, yeah, the number on the scale will drop, but you're probably going to be losing additional muscle mass as well. Another major point for losing weight, cutting, is my protein intake goes up. When I'm in a calorie surplus, when I'm bulking, I'm not too worried about protein. And I'm still getting my fish, you know, I still eat protein every day, but I'm not so worried about it, because my carb intake is so high, and my fat intake, basically everything is just in a surplus, that I'm not so worried about making sure I get enough protein. You know, I could do a whole video again on how much protein you need. There's a huge debate on that. But, you know, if you're getting a pound or a gram per kilogram, you know, that's what I hear is fine. And then, you know, as I'm cutting weight, I'll probably go closer to a gram of protein per pound of body weight, you know, if not more. And that's because my carbohydrate and fat sources just drop so much. I mean, they're much lower, you know, especially my carbohydrate sources, because, you know, when I'm bulking, I can eat up to 1,000 grams of carbs a day easily, you know. And then cutting weight, I really don't have to cut too much fat or protein. I mainly just need to cut the carbohydrates that I'm consuming. Still a carb junkie when I'm cutting, but like I said, it's the easiest to cut because I'm already getting so much. And even when I'm in a homeostasis state, which just means my body weight's not going up or down, I'm still consuming copious amounts of carbohydrates. So, you know, it just makes sense that I should go to that and reduce it to get into a calorie deficit. You know, my fat and protein levels don't get too out of control out of homeostasis, or even when I'm in a surplus. So yeah, keeping the same sort of tension on your muscles when it comes to lifting, being in a calorie deficit, and using cardio as a tool. I like high intensity cardio. I mean, my favorite cardio is like doing something competitive, basketball, baseball, something like that. You know, that's my favorite kind of cardio, because it doesn't really feel like cardio. You know, it's hard for me to get on a treadmill and go. But if I love running outside, I'll do sprints up hills and stuff. And the reason I like high intensity better is because I don't have to do as much time. I don't have to do it as long as I would for low intensity cardio. I think walking is great, but you know, you would have to walk a much longer time frame than if you did some uphill sprints, right? So you know, both can work. Yeah, and I try to let diet do most of the work, you know, because you know, as I mentioned in previous videos, if you are in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose some body fat. And you know, if you do a bunch of cardio but you're in a calorie surplus, you're not gonna lose any weight, you know. So the overall goal for cutting for me is losing weight and holding on to as much muscle as I possibly can, you know, trying to burn that body fat as opposed to burning my muscle, which is why my protein intake goes up when I'm in a deficit. You know, the body, we've evolved to hold on to fat. It's an evolutionary mechanism that we all have, and that's because back in the day we didn't know when we'd be getting our next fuel source. We didn't know when we'd be eating again. So our body holds on to this stuff, and you know, you're kind of going against evolution to do it, which is why, you know, people talk about how that lower belly fat, or the tire around for men, for women it's upper thighs and glutes generally, is so hard to lose, because I mean, that's evolution right there. It's holding on to that, you know. It's the first place it's going to store it, and it's the last place that it's going to burn it off, you know. I know it sucks, that's just how it is. But you know, keeping your calories at moderate deficits too, you know. You don't want to go from, you know, eating a ton to then just eating nothing. You want to do baby steps, right? So, you know, just small deficits, bit by bit by bit. And as you get leaner, you can go lower and lower with your calories, you know. You know, my calories are so high when I'm bulking that, you know, even at like the average 2,000 calories a day, that's a deficit for me. I will lose weight on 2,000 calories a day. But you have to kind of tinker with what fuels your body right and what doesn't. And if you get on the right foods and you're in a calorie deficit, you're still lifting heavy, and you use cardio as a tool, cutting and shredding up, getting a six-pack or whatever you're trying to do is very doable for anyone, you know, including us natties out there, you know. And so yeah, just finding little tricks of the trade too. Another trick of the trade is you know, making sure you're super hydrated, especially when you're cutting weight. But also, you know, you could do like seltzer waters or carbonated waters, and that for me helps fill me up. It makes me feel fuller, even if one of my meals is not very high in calories. I can drink some seltzer water and that will help. No, cutting is an art, you know. Shredding up is an art. I mean, it really is. It's advanced, you know. I mean, anyone can eat less calories and lose weight, but to keep your muscle and still lose weight at the same time, ideally burning as much body fat as you possibly can, that's an art, you know. I mean, that's what drives aesthetics, you know. I think 90% of being aesthetic is how lean you are. You know, not necessarily how big you are, but it's easy to, you know, lose and gain weight. I mean, those things are easy. You can just eat at a deficit and lose weight, eat at a surplus and gain weight. But to gain muscle is an art, and to lose fat and hold on to your muscle is an art. You know, it's not a science, because there are different ways about going about this, you know, and it's not as black and white as people think. And depending on your body type is going to defer how you should go about it, you know. Someone who has a lot of body fat, you're probably going to hold on to most of your muscle when you're trying to lose weight, so you don't need to worry so much about it. Someone who doesn't have as much body fat, you know, my body is just going to try to target everything when I'm in a deficit, you know, so I can lose muscle easy. And yeah, you know, enjoy this process. You know, cutting, people complain about cutting and shredding up all the time, but it should be enjoyed too. You know, it's pushing the boundaries. You know, it's good for the mind, it's good for the body, you know, to an extent, right? You don't want to get too much on a deficit, and you know, you always want to go back and start eating at a surplus again. But you know, it's good to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and cutting is way more out of your comfort zone, you know, being in a deficit than being in a surplus, you know. And then when you get into trying to hold on as much muscle as you can and still being in a calorie deficit, you know, that's when you get into the art part, you know, that's when you get into the Greek statue parts. And it should be enjoyed. You should enjoy seeing the progress that you're making, whether you're just trying to lose body fat or whether you're trying to get abs, or, you know, the whole process should be enjoyed, and it will be much easier. You know, if you're dreading every day losing weight, you're not doing it right.